I think morality is truly informed by good design and aesthetic. And it is an underrated principle.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean Donnelly. I'm the host of Creative Direction. We're filming today at Mama Dog Studios, a beautiful studio right here in Oakland, California. And we are so stoked to have Edreece Arghandiwal here today, co-founder and CMO of the Roots and Soul soccer clubs, homegrown soccer teams right here in Oakland, California. And yeah, man, excited to hear about your story.
Thank you for having me. Excited.
Talk to me about, for you, like how did growing up in Oakland like shape you and the way that you see things in the world?
I mean, it's literally my DNA. I mean, being born in Oakland, my mom and my dad were first generation coming to, America post-Soviet invasion. So from them coming from Afghanistan to the Bay Area was a massive shift. I can't even move to a different city. And, I think about the difficulty of starting life over in a city that's just adjacent. It's crazy to me. I can't imagine picking up your entire life, but they had to by virtue of just being forced to as refugees. Oakland was the first place that my family saw as reality in the Bay Area. And to see it as diverse as it is, I think shaped a lot of my existence, man. People from here talk a certain way and they believe in certain values and they have strength in their identity. And that comes from a little bit of difficulty and resilience. Being from here, it's not perfect, but life is such, man. The other day I had a profound realization around difficulty and ease in life. Oftentimes we believe life should be easy. And then when it's difficult, it frustrates our equilibrium. But I now believe it's the adverse. Life is quite difficult for pretty much everyone on planet Earth, even for babies when they're born. Yeah, but it is the act of making it easier for yourself and appreciating the easy things that do happen to you that make it all worth it.
That's one of the most important realizations is the harder something is, even though it can be so trying.
Yeah.
When you come out on the other side and you're successful, like what that does for your sense of confidence, you have to go through that fire in life. Yeah. I think that's like the ultimate antidepressant, put yourself in situations where you have to get tested and be uncomfortable and come out the other side and show yourself what you are actually capable of.
When you're intentful and authentic and you're strong about your storytelling and you don't shake when the world's like, come and do this crazy, cool, gimmicky thing. You zag while everyone else zigs. I think that's where the true movers are, man. We had 26,000 people at our home opener last year, which broke an American sports history record for highest attendance for a non-major league team. Our community investment round that had 3.6 million raised from 6,000 investors. Most successful community raise in American sports history. We started at $100 investments. So you could be a kid in East Oakland and invest and see value on that over time. It shows that when you stay true to your roots, no pun intended, and you know where you come from, it leads to really fantastic things. Most people stop halfway because the result doesn't amount immediately. But I saw some shit the other day where the dude was talking about how when you choose a path, you have to just make that path the right choice.
Yeah, man.
Well,
when you were first talking about that idea of resilience, the thing that was coming up for me is so much of our world is trying to get rid of friction. And you almost hear it as marketing speak from technology of creating a frictionless existence. But that friction is where we are built. That is where the most interesting, successful people who have the most impact get built. It's so easy to get inspired. Ideas are cheap. It's following through and doing it and sticking with it even when it gets hard. Talk to me about your parents and their story.
Oh yeah, a lot of Afghans my age or first generation will have a very similar story and narrative because refugees have a very common theme in that they are abruptly uprooted from their home, not by choice, but by force. And they have to seek a better circumstance for their families. My father specifically He was working at the Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul. Pretty educated, spoke English. He was kind of in danger staying in Kabul during the Soviet invasion. And so he was kind of pushed by his family to make that exit and also help facilitate the rest of my family coming. He landed in Germany. From there, he was able to find a sponsor. There was a family by way of a Christian church in San Francisco. Despite my family being Muslim and from Afghanistan, this church sponsored them to come here. And I think I'll never forget that story too, man, because it's like, that is the grace of people in this world. Yeah. Despite your religion or your faith, doing the right thing really removes those boundaries and those lines. He opened up a newspaper. At the time, that's how you got a job. It wasn't through LinkedIn. And he saw teller in one of the ads, and it was in San Francisco. My dad thought it was a storytelling job, and it was actually a bank teller position. And the bank manager was feeling so bad about the circumstance that he gave my dad that opportunity, and over the years grew a very successful life for himself, brought his entire family, and then by virtue of friendships created by our families, met my mom, and they got married. The resilience story actually doesn't stop there, man. The life of an immigrant and a refugee does not begin and end when they land at their destination site. It is what happens after that is actually the determining factor of their success or their demise. Either you adapt to the circumstances and you grow a life for yourself, or you succumb to the pressures of life and you fold.
This is the beautiful side of the thing that makes the United States, like the good side, a lot of bad history, but this is the good side. These voices and these people and these threads of these different places that have come to be resilient, to go out and make something of themselves and make it work.
Absolutely.
What did your dad, like growing up, did he instill that sense of like survival, resilience, making shit happen in
Absolutely.
you?
That's what makes the world we live in here in America the dream. It really is the immigrant stories. It really is the refugee stories. It's the hard work. It's the ethic. It's the embracing of one another and living in community. We can't accomplish anything alone on an island. We require one another. We require the diversity of ideas and beliefs to push the world forward. It's the spirit and the energy that my father and my mother grew up with and grew us to appreciate and follow. When you're growing up in an immigrant household, they have super high expectations for you. We struggled, so you don't have to. And the reality is our generation carries the traumas of what they've gone through. And that is not talked a lot about. I know a lot of people that are in the similar predicament where, I can experience a tremendously beautiful moment and immediately my brain goes into guilt mode. I'm not good enough to experience this thing. Why did I experience it? It's almost like you can't have the nice things mentality. And that is what I personally I'm trying to break. And empathy can be a tremendous tool. I believe it's one of the highest markers of intelligence one can have. But at the same time, it can turn into your demise because you're overly thinking every decision. Now having a 4-month-old daughter, I have to break that mold and find a new way of adapting to the circumstances because I'm here now.
Yeah, I feel like I'm an extreme empath. I do feel like that is the key to being a really amazing storyteller. On one side, you have the extreme sensitivity, but on the same side, you can experience this strong sense of joy. I do think that the powers that are pushing things forward, especially in our country right now, want us to be cynical. They want us to not live within a state of action. They don't want us to experience joy. It is our responsibility to embrace that sense of joy, because with joy comes purpose, with joy comes action.
Dude, life is such a trickery. The systems around us will make us feel so much like our existence and our identity is secondary to this false reality that we're creating outwardly. I've seen so much struggle and difficulty, and I've lost a lot of people to the extent that these external pressures, false pressures, really just don't make sense to me anymore. As an empath, I value seeing a sunset more than seeing someone pull up with their sick ass car or whatever it is. Like I see the facade. I see the trickery. Too much is driven by what will other people think? How do I perceive to the world that my value is larger than what it actually is? Subconsciously, a lot of that shit's going on, dude. Before social media and before all of this, you had to be actually cool in real life. A lot of these folks are nerds.
Total nerds. And I've come to the belief that they are actually poor in terms of poverty of love.
Oh,
I mean, I have like a son who loves me. I have a wife who loves me. I have friends who love me. None of those folks have true love from the people around them.
Probably not, because it's jaded throughout every step of the way. I mean, building this club has been a tremendous eye-opening experience because we're one of the first purpose-oriented pro soccer teams in the nation. Everything we do is done with a lens of how do we give back to our community and our fans and do it with purpose. Patagonia was up there as an example. Ben & Jerry's was up there as an example. And their examples are pivotal because there is a world where you can be purpose-oriented and still make money. This notion that the two have to be detached, that you have to shit on people to become rich, is actually a tremendously false narrative. We can create the path that we want by virtue of willing it and working very, very hard at it. The systems act against it. That's why it feels like it's impossible. But the club has now existed for 8-9 years, and we've been putting community and purpose. Purpose doesn't mean perfect. I got to remind people that just because we're purpose oriented doesn't mean that our actions all of a sudden got to be perfect.
You have to get beyond a transaction. If you're competing on transaction, someone else can come up under you. Yeah. Whereas like what you've built in your examples of like looking up to Ben & Jerry's, looking up to Patagonia, people vote with their values. They vote with their dollar. They vote with their brand because it has become identity. It gives meaning.
I fully agree with you. And I do believe that the next wave of successful institutions and organizations are going to be ones that place value on human experience and human connectivity and human emotion. Every single game, we send out a Net Promoter Score survey. And that survey tells us how likely someone will promote the brand or the experience to someone else. That's how we got to where we got to over the course of 5-6 years without paid advertisement. It was word of mouth marketing. Wow. Still is the greatest tool on planet Earth.
Absolutely.
Build something great for someone, give them a positive experience. They'll tell other people for you. Every game, I'm now tuned into the details that are not making our experience world-class.
Yeah.
You know, why did that line get bottlenecked? Was the fireworks too loud for our neighbors? Like, these details matter. And the tweaking of that over time leads to people becoming ambassadors of your brand. It cannot be a one-way transaction.
When you're creating the club and the brand, I know that you were on the ground doing the work. You were engaging with the community in Oakland. What made your process different? And what did you find out from that process?
Oftentimes when you're creating something new or you have a campaign or whatever, the organic thing to do from a MBA or business standpoint is like, oh, what are your comps? Like, who's your competition? What are the threats, et cetera, et cetera. I approached the brand creation process completely differently. I didn't look at any of my comps in sports. I didn't look at any of our threats in the local market. I actually looked at how the hell do we create a lifestyle brand and zag outside of the norm, because sports teams were two colors. Like, ain't no one gonna wear a basketball jersey to a recording or to their office. I wanted to wear custom Roots and be able to feel like I can pull up to Fashion Week with it and not feel out of place.
Interesting.
Not feel weird. Teams and sports brands thought too much about sports apparel and sports identity and not enough about life as a sport. Everyday life as the thing that is actually the connector to the sport itself. Sports in America is a monopolistic entity. In Europe, teams are created from the pubs. They're created from the common people. They're created over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years. Liverpool would never leave to Manchester. Real Madrid would never just say, oh, you know what? We're going to go and move to wherever. It just doesn't happen. I fundamentally thought that like looking at sports brands was not the right methodology. I'm looking at the biggest brands in the world, i.e., what is Louis Vuitton doing? What is Virgil doing? What are all the biggest artists in the world doing? At the time, Kanye was really pushing the boundary around merchandise and artistry. And this is like pre him going nuts. But like, you know, it was using a lot of that as the source of the core for how we were going to approach the brand identity. I called my homie Matt Wolf, who was pushing the boundaries around design in the soccer space, didn't have the funds, so told him to become a co-founder. My background is branding and marketing, so I knew that building something that would last 100 years would take its time and intention. We had over 100 crest ideas. The name creation, dude, I have a picture of a whiteboard where we had names like My Thai Football Club, Bumptown FC, you know, and a bunch of other stuff up on the wall. I'm glad we landed on Oakland Roots because it was iconic. Our community advisory board was made up of 12, 13 key folks in the community that gave us this input. Talked to K-Dub, who built Defirmery Park, the skate park, skate pillar in our community. This is the way you got to move in Oakland, which is tapping in with your elders and getting the sign off of respect. Then I went to Oaklandish and I was like, hey, we have a crest. This is what it looks like. Yes, we're a pro soccer team. No, we don't have money or a league to play in or a stadium to play in or a roster. But eventually these things will assemble. And Oaklandish was amazing enough to believe in that vision. Signed on as our apparel partner, dropped our first capsule. People were rocking it without knowing who we were. They're just like, oh, is this like a dope new thing in Oakland that like we can get behind because it looks dope? One day shopping with my wife and someone was rocking a tee and this was early days. And I was like, there's no way that this person knows that we're a soccer team. They were swaggy as hell. Asked the person if they knew that we were a quote unquote pro soccer team. The answer was no, but that's dope. And then became a fan inevitably. That data point, the merch doing well, led to the discussion with our first investors. Hey, push the dream forward. Yeah. Wow. And so kicked the soccer ball in August 31st of 2019. I turned 30 years old that day. And I was driving to the game. And I remember having this profound out-of-body experience around like putting your life into something because you believe it. And then it turning into a reality is the most insane blessing you could have in your life. I remember just like that feeling. Honestly, I've been riding that feeling since, bro. Like these home openers, 26,000 at the Coliseum and all that, it's crazy full circle because it's also my first sporting experiences in my life. We're at the Coliseum. So to be there is one thing. Seeing my father there is another thing. That first game, I can't quite describe to you. We didn't have a ticketing software. I didn't know if like one person was going to show up or 5,000. I was buying wristbands for VIP off Amazon. Like I was pulling dead rats from under the bleachers. I was tweeting mid-game that we scored a goal. Like all this shit was happening and I had the responsibility and weight. I remember feeling like I was going to collapse that day because I was doing like 15 miles just to make sure that the game was a reality. We went to a bar and my whole family was there in downtown. It was very special. I think even more so special because there was people that enjoyed their lives week in and week out when we have games and you see people enjoying themselves. It is literally worth every ounce of energy. Just this past weekend, we had kids night out and we had 7,000 people there. Kids for the first time seeing their sports experiences. Most of these kids, this is what they know. They don't know the A's. They don't know the Raiders. They don't know the Warriors. Some of them can't afford to go to watch a Warriors game. But being at the Coliseum and seeing Oakland Roots play is their first sports experience. That is a mind-boggling responsibility.
Your whole story and your family story, and then also what you go through. I mean, it really comes back to me of like the intertwining of resilience and joy. The sunrise of the game day is so much brighter because of all those things.
I think LL Cool J said this, or someone said this at some point, but like the more levels, the more devils. The ability to stay strong on your morality throughout every phase, even on small decisions, is so freaking difficult. From a creative standpoint, you know, we didn't have a brand guideline until this year because the brand guideline lived in my head and it lived in our designer's head, Danny. Danny, I've worked with him for a decade plus, and he just gets my brain. We have a very synonymous view of the world, and him and I have controlled every single asset that has ever gone out for the club. Photo, video, graphic, that like relentless pursuit of the brand and in spirit of giving something of value to people, that's what it takes. But then as we've gotten bigger, the control over those assets is more difficult. We're now 20 plus people in the front office. We have a whole ass technical staff with players and a women's team in Oakland Soul, our development team in Project 510, real estate, future stadium stuff. And you're like, I'm not even in like 70% of these conversations anymore.
You can't be,
Can't be, but then at the same time, that's the mind fuck. Because you're like, but it needs to be what I want it to be. And that's where the importance of hiring the right people comes into play.
Well, and also having that like strong story and narrative that everyone who comes through the door lives and breathes. When you think about like the narrative, the story of the Roots, when you boil down like Nike and Apple to their, you know, simple taglines, right? That simple brand value. Like for you, what do you feel like it is for the Roots?
Well, we have two principles. And it's know your roots. Knowing where you come from is principle in knowing where you're going. We often don't place enough value in our past experiences. We live in a culture where we're like, forget about what you went through, live in the now, live in the now. But now is profoundly informed by your past experiences, good or bad. So embracing it is very, very important, dude. How could you progress? Hi-Fi is built on funk music. Funk music is built on jazz. Jazz is built, like you can't just ignore the realities of where things come from. And then Oakland first always. So I get a lot of questions around this. Oh, is Oakland first always limiting your fan base to just Oakland? Hell nah. I mean, you got Elisa Liu winning at the highest level. You got Zendaya, you know, at the highest level. You have Kehlani winning the Grammys. You have Ryan Coogler winning Oscars. Oakland is major, family. It is at the top of the world. Damian Lillard, Marshawn Lynch, Billy Joe Armstrong, the list goes on. Jason Kidd, the list goes on.
For a city of how many people? 500,000?
Exactly.
I mean, so, like when you think about the output compared for the city size, it's pretty...
It's profound. E40 says this very cleanly, and he's from Vallejo. He says, everyone from the Bay Area knows that Oakland is core to the culture. Oakland first always doesn't mean you gotta be from here to appreciate what we're doing. It means that you subscribe to our values and our beliefs and our creativity and our appreciation for humanity. This is why we have shipped product to every continent on earth except for Antarctica. If you know someone there, bro, let me know. And I want people to feel from Oakland that they can have nice things. They can be associated with world-class brands, that world-class brands don't have to leave in order to gain value somewhere else. Quite frankly, all these other sports teams got their swagger from Oakland. The Raiders would not have the swagger without Oakland. The A's would not have the Ricky swag and the Giambi Smash Brothers swag and all this stuff. Like all
the
that.
Warriors. I mean, it was
the
like,
Warriors,
it was the scrappy, you know,
Roracle and the We Believe, like that is all Oakland, dude.
Then people want to root for that. You know, it's like when
Absolutely.
the Warriors were in Oakland and it was the scrappy team and Steph, you know, is like the young skinny kid. It's like the classic ethos of storytelling around like rooting for the little guy. Because we all are the underdog, right?
We all are in some domain. We all have a difficulty in life, and having a sports team that you can identify with. You know, more people follow the sport of soccer than religion combined.
No, I didn't know that.
When you're from a community, despite your religious belief or your sexual orientation or the way you look, the way you dress, whatever, your sports team is your sports team. Mm-hmm. And it's the way everyone comes together to celebrate a thing. I get a little bit aggravated when they say it in the context of the teams leaving. The co-founding group did not create this to fill the void of those teams leaving. That was not, I will never subscribe to building something at the demise of something else.
Sure, yeah.
We built it because I knew there just wasn't a soccer team. And our co-founding group had these conversations in the early days. Why not soccer? I take tremendous pride in developing our identity in a position of strength, actually making people feel like they ain't the underdog. It's a little bit of a flip in the mentality. Like, yes, it's scrappy. Yes, it's rootsy, but like we can be world class. We can be Barcelona one day. Why do we have to drag the things that we build down to a level that is not appreciated? We need to support one another a bit more. I want Oakland at a universal level. Our sports teams need to do that.
One of the reasons I think that people respond to like what you're doing so much is that you're standing for something. Like the brand, the voice, it is taking a firm stand and saying, this is who we are. You know, it's not trying to appease the masses, and that people want to be part of that. Yeah. You know, if that's the values that they believe in.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious, like, so, you know, like we're in the world of like the creative agency world, media making, all of that. What would be your wisdom to share when people are going through their process of trying to create something that someone responds to and wants to be part of?
Yeah, I appreciate this question a lot because the output of creativity is often tied to your resourcing. We hired a Oscar-nominated animation firm to develop a 15, 20-second reel of a person morphing into the Lake Merritt monster, which speaks to the narrative around the Lake Merritt monster that was in the early 1900s, an amphibious creature that lives in the lake. And that story has kind of been forgotten. And if you look at that campaign from the outside, you would think $85,000 to $125,000. These campaigns are done on the dime, like sub 15, 20K, and oftentimes sub 5K. My recommendation to people upcoming is that your resourcing is really limited to your creative ability. So work on that muscle and don't complain about the resourcing and the circumstance. When you make a decision, make that the right decision and find a creative pathway towards that becoming a reality. Boundaries suck, but the reality of creativity is that there's a literal life boundary. Yeah, that's actually where the creativity is the difficulty in trying to make something happen. So the best advice I ever got from someone was during my wedding, and it was Michael Ealy, and he was there that day telling me like, hey, you know, don't stress too much about what people don't see. They only see what they see. It's really about how you frame the narrative and how you make the decision so that when it gets to that thing that people interact with, it's their first perception. Everything is meant to be difficult. So when it's easy, take that as a blessing. And if you just radically accept that, I think you will find yourself in a far more creative space, and your output will be significant.
Yeah, I've also come to the belief if it's easy, you're probably not doing it right. And you're not pushing yourself. Like I was a photojournalist before I got into this creative work. And there was a famous photographer there who told me, you go out and you shoot the assignment. And then you shoot the assignment. And it's something I live with, crazy. Like you always push it. Just even if it's just a little bit, you push it a little bit more just a little bit, because that shows in the final output. It also keeps you engaged.
When leaders don't have vision that, well, not just the vision, but the action, it's like making a prayer and then like hoping that something will resolve in your life. It doesn't stop there. You have to actually then go and do something about the prayer for it to amount. When leaders have vision and then it stops at just that, you're just a hypocrite, right? You're saying something, but you're not in the trench. You're saying this, but you're not living that value. I really don't give a shit about your resume. Like, yes, there's a baseline, but are you someone I can see myself working for? I can proudly say that like everyone in our club has been hired with that lens.
When did you decide that you wanted to get into storytelling, marketing, branding? What was the inspiration for going down that path?
I went to UC Davis, where I studied biological sciences and economics. I majored in biosci because my parents, they just wanted the best. So you got to become a doctor, engineer, or whatever, you know, that makes the money. That's every immigrant family thinks that like, that's the best path for their child. But throughout my trajectory in college, I did a lot of clinical internships. I had this moment in my head where it just wasn't necessarily the right path for me. I have so much respect for doctors because it's stuff that I just simply cannot do. They are able to repair and constantly deal with people's circumstances in ways that I can't. I knew in that moment that I was far more entrepreneurial driven and creative, and I wanted to create things that impacted people throughout their lives in a way that positively contributed. I knew I was just not cut for that, and I was cut for doing things that were pushing the creative wavelength and was making people feel joy. I threw a lot of concerts in college. That's actually how I met Mr. Fab, is how I met the pack. I was already like dibbling and dabbling in the culture game. Then I did a couple internships in New York City for Translation LLC and Sean John. I was at BET for a little bit. And all of that gave me a taste of culture and art and music that kind of clicked in my head, where design and marketing and music and culture was kind of the engine for reality. Everything that we experience as society is informed by culture. The one specific project I worked on at Translation was in helping bring McDonald's McCafe from Europe to America. And in that, we did in-depth studies around the demographic that they were marketing to, wanted to market to, and we pressure test that to see what their interests are. And I remember coming out of those studies with a sense of who people liked in pop culture, why, and what their motivations were. When you tell the wrong story to the wrong demographic, it's not going to hit. It's not going to connect. I saw the power of marketing. I saw the power of branding. I saw the power of culture. Came back, had a few entrepreneurial stints, was at Apple Retail, where I helped co-manage a few retail locations here in the East Bay. No one in our retail stores received commission on product. I had sales staff doing like $1 million days through corporate accounts, but everyone was motivated by vision, passion, and the bigger picture. And I started to then understand power of brand, power of advertising, culture, retail. Then I got pulled into New York for a quick stint with Susan Linz, who was doing set design for massive artists, Beyonce, Rihanna, Jay-Z. Then I got an understanding of like, oh my God, architecture and set design is a whole new world of reality. And my Swiss Army knife tool started to assemble in this crazy ass way. Where like soccer, my passion, branding and marketing and design, all of a sudden is just like merging in this insane way. And then came back to Oakland, met the co-founding group over recreational soccer. One of the co-founders who was really kind of at the early stages with me in Benno reached out and was like, hey dude, like there's no soccer team in Oakland. I'm like, yeah, you're right. There's none. And then that conversation led to meeting Mike Geddes, the first chief purpose officer in professional sports, who was a co-founder. We all held a session in front of community members at Cliff Bar in Emeryville, and we got pummeled, dude. Like completely demolished to the point where like I was devastated. I'm like, man, this is tough. Like tough crowd, can't do this. It's not possible. But we kept chugging along. First funding was around November, December of 2018, after the brand had launched and there was some traction and we got funding. And finally had enough resources on the club side to then go full time. I was part-time and I was working for free for 4 years up until that moment. I was building the brand when I was getting home from the job. You know what I mean? Literally jumping out of the car from my cousin's spot, sleeping in his closet, all this shit. I had the realization that most American sports teams view marketing as something completely not what it is. I looked at marketing in different domains in the fashion industry and my own experience of what it was. And I brought that to the table and I was like, I think this is fundamentally flawed. Most pro sports teams have design sitting in some like adjacent ass department. Like the sexy stuff is actually in ticket sales and partnerships because they kind of lead the revenue discussions, and then marketing is kind of like, hey, what assets do you guys need? And then plugs in. That is actually fundamentally not how we built this club. CMO felt like the right title because at the time, merchandise lived underneath me. I was actually set up HR and was paying people, you know, every other Friday. And I also had to do ticket sales. The sales was the marketing. Our partnerships was the marketing. How could you sell an asset that is not informed by the marketing? The value of our partnerships goes up by the visibility of our assets. The more our jersey is designed dope and gets in the biggest magazines, the more visibility Anthem Blue Cross gets. It was just ranked #1 jersey pushing creative design culture last year, ahead of PSG, ahead of like Barcelona. And our differentiation and our value prop has led to the success in all those domains. And so I'm excited. And in a way, like I kind of think I'm more of a creative director than a CMO. I think the definition of creative director will change dramatically. It's not a person that leads the design team anymore. It is the person that leads the vision of the brand and the story the way fashion houses do it. When Virgil is the head of Louis Vuitton as creative director, that means something tremendously different than this like tokenized creative director that most sports teams have. And they crank assets that people tell them to crank. Creative directors hold brand and hold the story. And back to our discussion about AI, every company's gonna want one. Yeah. Every company's gonna need one badly.
What you've built in the way of the organization of the Roots is the engine that drives it all is that intimate knowledge of culture. Like culture is the driving force around all of those other decisions that make everything else go. It's beyond like a focus group. It's like, what are the cultural rituals and the understanding in which the people you are talking to live and breathe every day so that they feel like the thing you're building reflects them.
It really is. Yeah, it really, really is, man. And culture is informed by human connectivity and decision-making. And a lot of that lives in creative, man, and who directs that. You know, the notion that you have to know how to use Photoshop and Illustrator is actually like completely out the door now, right? Like everyone's going to be pretty savvy and privy to the tools. The key differentiation is going to be taste. The future is in the hands of tastemakers because everything will start to look the same and feel the same and so on. It's how do you make people feel a certain way? The creative director is a very like, it's different per the industry, but it really comes down to I think empathy and storytelling and being able to predict the moves for humanity. And it also means not being rigid. So rigidity is like actually the antithesis of being a creative director because a rigid mindset doesn't lead to adaptability. Adaptability is where you want to live. When new tools started to drop, I started to feel this like thing in my heart where I was like kind of against using these things. But then I was like, wait. Like these things are now starting to help elevate the storytelling in a way that I couldn't before. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's like stripping the storytelling away. I can't give the story to this thing, to this tool, or I can't let the tool become the story, but I can help it inform and add to what I'm creating in a way that will amplify it. Aesthetic is key, man. In a world where a graphic can now be created at such ease, intentional aesthetic is key. People feel good design. And I think morality is truly informed by good design and aesthetic. And it is an underrated principle. It's why, like, when you go to Rome and you see the Colosseum, there's a reason why the world goes to see these things. And there's a reason why when you see beautiful things, you feel good. When bad design is pushed out in the world and it's like perpetuated, it's like the worst thing for me, because I think that it subliminally sends a triggered some subconscious message to the world, and it informs people's decision making. Companies kill themselves when they don't think about humans at the center of their design and growth, whether it's internal or external.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we're in such an interesting period with AI.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's just like people are so obsessed with the amount that they can get out.
Oh yeah.
Without thinking about, are you actually doing damage to what you're saying and what you're associating with what you stand for?
This is dilutive and everyone can do it. And I do think that the world will start going towards design and experience and branding as the kind of key pillars for value as we grow, because that it is the one thing that will actually differentiate storytelling, design, creativity, intentful creation and creativity, art, even music, right? Like music homogenizes because of AI. But when you hear the voice of Amy Winehouse and you see the way that Sade moves and you connect that with the artistry. I mean, I remember watching Amy the other day on TV and thinking like, damn, I didn't appreciate how much value she brought to the world as an artist. We have to realize the power of these things moving forward, because it will be the crux of value moving forward. Can you trigger someone's emotion? Can you create something that makes someone feel something? There needs to be a real life component.
Absolutely. You know? And that's how you're going to win, because every single art movement throughout time was a reaction to the previous movement.
Absolutely.
The people who are going to win are going to say, look at what's happening now.
Yeah.
And then create the new lane that people are going to respond to.
I saw a data point around like, you know, through every world war, recession, depression, like sports booms. We have fatigue from the dopamine rush, and we need things that bring us back to feeling whole. Virgil was a big inspiration for me in my kind of upbringing in the brand and marketing world, because what I saw him do was have people think about things differently. You know, we went to IKEA and just transacted because it was fast and it was easy. But then like his collab with IKEA had people lining up outside, you know, and you're like, wait, he brought a different meaning to something that was mundane. But with me specifically, it is how do you do that and pair it with like moving the needle for people? We're here for a very small, short amount of time. So how can my actions contribute to something that like moves the needle for someone in their life while they're alive and while they're functioning? And that's why the act of being in this job and this function is really special and meaningful.
It doesn't surprise me that you went from medicine to storytelling and marketing, because like, you know, it's like being in medicine, it's an essential part. You got to patch people up, make sure they're living. But, you know, creativity, storytelling, like these are the reasons that people live.
Joy is medicine, dude. That's why like we were talking about our kids, like kids bring a lot of joy. And that's why, it's a way for us to propel forward. It keeps us motivated. Our work is like that. I think the key is like, you got to decide like what in your life is worth the weight of its thing in your life. You know, you can't have the wrong thing be the weight.
Any other tidbits of wisdom for us, you know, that you want to share, or anything like looking forward?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that you're excited about.
I'm excited about a lot, dude. The club's rise has been quite the story. And I hope that actually we can create a way in which people can digest this story, along with building a long-term home where people can come to every day and they know it's their stadium and build tradition and culture. It's really the 100-year vision, man. Trying to build something that becomes the asset forever and lives beyond any one of us. And my advice and or recommendation to them is if Roots and Soul can be any source of inspiration, it's that sheer will is like the greatest superpower on earth. Like, does not matter who you are, where you're coming from, your resources, your circumstances. As Marshawn says, like plowing through that motherfucker, like that's all it takes. You just gotta keep on plowing. And then someday you kind of like strike gold. Sometimes people stop right before, you know, they're right there. But my recommendation is to keep going.
Thanks to your mom and dad, because they taught you, you know, like going back, like the full circle.
Full circle.